Welcome back to the Shacknews Awards. We're going to jump right in to the best platformer category. See what I did there? No? Anyway. To be considered for this Shacknews Award category, you just have to be a platforming game, either 2D or 3D, maybe even 4D, that released this year. So you can't be in early access, unfortunately. But yeah, if you're out here in the wild in the year 2024, you can be nominated. And if you're a fun game. So let's get to the nominees, and then we'll get to talking about them, and then we'll probably get these votes done. Penny's Big Breakaway, Pepper Grinder, Astrobot, Sonic X Shadow Generations, Neva, and last but not least, Animal Well. So those are the nominees.
I forgot about Pepper Grinder.
Yeah, you did forget about Pepper Grinder, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. TJ, you reviewed Penny's Big Breakaway, right?
I did.
What do you like? I feel like it's kind of been forgotten about in this category and just kind of this year because of the timing of when it released. But what do you think's like for someone who doesn't even remember this game or never played it? Like, what do you think's something that could convince them to check it out, or why do you think it deserves to be here and is unique?
It's kind of one of the best non-Sonic, non-Mario third 3D platformers I've played in a while. You play as a character that uses yo-yos as her main means of traversal, which makes for a lot of fun stuff, like being able to ride on the yo-yos and move really fast through like ramping levels, or grab onto like poles and swing around on them. You can swing around like a wrecking ball with certain power-ups. And just like the way in which they use the yo-yos to create like it's a fast but not like neck break speed fast type platforming traversal, and it feels cool as hell when you get it down pat and like do a good run through a level.
Yeah, it's important to note this is from the Sonic Mania devs, who kind of revived the 2D Sonic genre with how the love and care that they gave that game. So I remember being surprised when their next game was going to be a 2D platformer, a 3D platformer after their 2D success. But yeah, you can see that there's a lot of influences from the older 3D Sonic games, but also just like fast games. Like I don't know how else to describe it. Like it feels like a game that was built with speedrunning in mind. And it's actually quite fun to watch speedrunners play through it, because like you said, when you get that like path right in that game, it just looks cool. Like it's fun to watch, and also feels good when you're playing it.
There's also a combo system in the game that like rewards you for like doing yo-yo tricks and defeating enemies in like a string without taking damage or stopping.
Yeah. It's got like a Tony Hawk feel to it, where you're like chaining together combos. Yeah. That is cool as hell, and it's kind of different when you look at it compared to the other platformers in this category. Even, yeah, I'm glad to see it getting some love here at the Shacknews Award, even at the Shacknews Awards, even with just a nomination, because it seems like people forgot about that this year. But yeah, Penny's Big Breakaway. And talk about it's like a brand new IP. It's just kind of cool.
That's like so rare in platformers nowadays, because like we all have our established like loves for these IPs that have been doing it for decades, and the Sonic Mania devs kind of like have their reputation with Sonic Mania to ride on. Penny's is kind of a risk, and I think it was a cool one to see, because we don't get a lot of stuff like this, especially in the 3D platformer space.
Yeah, absolutely. Who here wants to talk about Pepper Grinder?
I can speak to Pepper Grinder a little bit. This is a game from a solo game dev, published by Devolver Digital. It's basically about you're a hero with a giant drill, and the giant drill is you use it like you might expect to. You might use it for like as a weapon. You might use it to defeat enemies and all that. but the drill is mainly about platforming. It's about burrowing through the ground and burrowing through different surfaces, making sweet jumps, and like getting to like and building up a lot of speed. It has like some of that Sonic formula to it, and Pepper Grinder gets like really frantic in a lot of different spots, and I enjoy it for that. It's definitely something a little different. It takes a little time to get used to flying around with the drill, but it's such a cool little idea, and the fact that one guy made this work, like this is really a really cool game.
It kind of like the core mechanic, Ozzy. It kind of reminds me of one of the traversal mechanics in Ori and the Will of the Wisps, where you kind of had a similar burrow and like emerging out of the ground, sort of
something like that. But you got to control your movement with Pepper Grinder, and that makes it like a little more challenging.
Yeah, it's you're less on rails, so things can go very terribly pretty quickly.
And things often do go terribly, like in the later levels. I haven't gotten to the later levels, but Laren Bell, who reviewed this for us, had some good words to say about this. And one of the things that she notes is that this doesn't overstay its welcome very long. It's a short game, like at about like 6-7 hours. So
it reminds me a lot of Dig Dug. If it was a platformer, if like Dig Dug was a platformer, when Dig
Dug was not fast.
No,
it's not fast. And like the thing about this that I like is, again, you can just control where you go. And that's like part of the fun of it, is that you're digging, but you have no idea how to control this thing. And you're just trying to aim yourself in a way that you can make the sweetest jump and not fall to your death.
I mean, you're speaking my language with all these sweet jumps, Ozzy. But yeah, unless anyone else wants to chime in on Pepper Grinder, I think we can move on to the next nominee.
It was really fun. I played it at GDC, the GDC event, indie, and it was just super fun. Like, he didn't want to do an on-camera interview, but it was a super fun game to play.
Oh yeah, it's probably Mixer, because
the Mixer.
The Mixer, you have like
the music gets so loud.
It's just a nightmare situation to be in for an interview. Anyway, our next nominee, PlayStation made a 3D platformer this year, you guys. It's called Astrobot. Not sure if you heard of it. Yeah.
PlayStation made their own Mario Galaxy.
They did, or / Sunshine.
I like this as a Mario Galaxy tribute kind of thing.
But Flood. They have Flood.
It's more like Kirby in the Forgotten Land, in my opinion, but
the fact that it has the DNA of so many of these awesome platformers that we're naming actually speaks to how good the game is.
Oh no, it definitely is. It has several nods to 3D platformers from Nintendo for sure. And even some boss battles from other games that Nintendo may have made.
For better or worse.
Maybe a jetpack from a GameCube era Nintendo game. But, it's forgetting all of that. Astrobot is a mascot for the PlayStation brand now, and it's because of this game. This game is like a celebration of the PlayStation franchise in a lot of ways. I mean, like the entire PlayStation franchise, like every game to ever come out on it, including Ape Escape. But yeah, it's good. I like it. It's fun. And I'm happy to see so many people discovering the joy of 3D platforming in 2024.
I haven't spoken to this yet in these deliberations, but when I was at Evo, they had Astrobot playable down in the corner, and and I go, "What is your hardest level?" And they take me to one of those little one-off stages where you got to do it all in one go. And yeah, that hits Mario level of hard, of like Mario Special World level of like, this is really tough. And I actually appreciate that, because it's easy to dismiss Astrobot and its aesthetic is like, oh, it's adorable, but like, it's a game for kids. No, this gets intense, man. Like, if you really want to go for the hard stuff, it's there. So I definitely love it for that too.
Yeah, I don't know, David, you said you had some thoughts on this game.
Oh yeah, I mean, you mentioned another category also that I don't really. Platforming is my favorite genre, but I don't really take to 3D platformers just because I don't find them as fun. I really like this game because I feel like it has made some quality of life improvement to the Mario games that it clearly is paying homage to. I like the fact that you can't run straight off an edge. I actually really like the fact that you die in one hit, but you have a lot of checkpoints. I always felt like people were more insulted by like the golden Tanuki leaf in Mario games. They gave those because it's not really fun to use that. It's like it's kind of making fun of you for being such a poor player in a way. At least with like you use that, it's basically a cheat code. Astrobot doesn't do that. You still have to beat the level yourself. You just have a lot of opportunities to do it. And I think that's really clever. And I know it does borrow a lot from other platformers, but I think even Mario has borrowed a lot from other platformers because it wasn't the first, right? Not even Donkey Kong was the first. And so I really just see this as the evolution of 3D platforming in a lot of ways, taking from other games, but also putting its own spin on everything. That it just has some of the most inventive and charming levels I've ever played. I was really, really taken with it this year.
I think the thing that it does very well, that we also saw in a game like Mario Wonder last year, even though Wonder's 2D and this is 3D, is that with each level in Astrobot, and I'm not saying every single level, but with a lot of different levels, there's different gameplay mechanics that are introduced just for that level.
Yeah.
And it makes the game feel like you said, it never feels stale because there's either some new world that you're in that pays homage to some IP that you like, and then it has gameplay kind of relative to that, or it's just a flat out interesting platform puzzle level. I think it's the variety of the game's levels that is probably its strongest suit, but at the same time, like without those unique gameplay mechanics in each level, is it that interesting with just the jetpack? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think so. But that's my point, though, is that that choice, that like just like they did with Mario Wonder, having the Wonder mechanic. Imagine Mario Wonder without the Wonder mechanic. It's fine,
right.
but it's not great. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of what happened here with Astrobot. Is like the way that they decided to pick and choose which are I hate to use the word gimmick, but like what gimmick is going to be the theme of this level. I think they did a really good job curating that in the game. I think that's like one of the best parts of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I sometimes call it Karibo's Shoe the Game because it has a lot of that Mario charm of like a one-off gimmick that you'll never see again. I think your comparison to the thrusters as Flood is pretty apt because I really liked the platforming in Mario Sunshine with or without Flood, you know, those bonus stages, for example. I feel like the thrusters just make the platforming even more enjoyable again because it's a little more forgivable. Like if I'm jumping to a platform and I'm not quite sure I'm going to hit it, I get that hover mechanic for just a bit. I can see my shadow. I know I'm good to land. And I really feel like this has brought platforming fans and not platforming fans, just anecdotally speaking, together in a way that not even Mario has, at least in my house. Like Amy doesn't really like Mario games 2D or 3D. The physics are a little too much for her, like how Mario kind of will slide a little bit before he stops, that kind of thing. But she really likes Astrobot just because of the precision, the checkpoints. She even thinks the one-hit kills are fair just because she gets these opportunities to try and try again. And we haven't even talked about, I mean, we've talked a little bit about in other categories the fan service to PlayStation here, but I love finding the bots. I don't even I think they're cool going to see them at the crash site. It's really fun to see them. But to me, the challenge of finding them is really cool. And there's a bird you can unlock once you finish the level that will kind of nudge you in the direction of secrets. It's like a game of hot or cold, basically. And so I think that's a pretty cool way to, again, you can use the help to find secrets or not. You can just ignore it. It really comes down to you. There's just a lot of user preference in the game.
Yeah, and the finding of the cameo bots, in each level, it kind of reminds me of like the red coins in 64, where it's like, yeah, you don't have to do this, but it'd be pretty cool if you did.
The cameo bots are so cool that you want to get everything. You feel the need to 100% that game.
Like, not only do I want to get them all, Ozzy, I want to get them all in one shot. You know what I mean? Like, it feels cooler when you get all of them in that first try.
Yeah.
And like it reminds me of like when you go into Odyssey, for instance, David, and it's like I want to get as many, moons as possible in this run. And I think that's the part of Astrobot that like I instantly felt where I was like, oh, So there's like the easy way to beat this level, and then there's like the pro gamer way. And that's when I was like, okay, this is going to appeal to a lot of people because it's going to be easy enough to kind of just plod through, but like platinuming that game is very hard. And maybe not for everyone, but it's like it's a challenge. I think did you platinum it, David?
I haven't platformed it yet. I actually got really sucked into Ozzy mentioned them. I call them the shape challenges, square, triangle, cross, so forth. I really love those one-off levels because I feel like they were made for me in the same way that Mario Sunshine's bonus stages were made for me. Like it's just pure platforming skill. And I think I've taken gameplay clips of each of those that I've finished just because it feels so good to finally get to the bot at the end. But I think you're right. I love getting all the bots in one go to the point where, like, if you pause, you can see the order in which you've collected the bots. And if I see an outline and then one filled out, I'm like, what? And I have to go back and find that bot before I can progress.
Yeah, you're like, it doesn't feel right. You're like, I don't want to leave this robot behind even on my first run.
Right.
And the other thing I just want to say, like sorry, Bill, but like the level design in this game is outstanding visually, but also the way they chain together platform puzzles, the ubiquitous amount of checkpoints is definitely a bonus given how hard some challenges can be. But yeah, sorry, Bill, go ahead.
I was gonna say the outlines, David, that happened to me when I was playing as well, where I'd finish a level and there'd be an outline of one missing. But what I liked was that you knew about where it would be.
Yeah.
Because they're obviously in a sequence, right? So you would know, like, okay, like I'm missing the last one. Like I can kind of blitz through the first 3/4 of the level and then intensify my search from there, kind of thing. So, or whatever it might be. So I actually thought, like, I know that's not groundbreaking game design, but I just thought it was kind of neat that I had that same pull of like I don't care for platformers one way or the other. I don't dislike them. I don't love them. But I was like, oh, no way. I'm not missing one. I have to go back and get that before I could move on, too. It wasn't like,
oh, yeah.
I really didn't feel like I was beating a level if I didn't collect them all.
Yeah.
No, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, what's the point of finishing it? Like, that's not hard. I mean, I'm sure it gets harder, but so far, like it's not hard.
That is such a delicate balance to achieve well in 3D platforming gameplay that you don't make it a collectathon, right? Like Donkey Kong 64, which is I think is the most absurd collectathon ever created. Because you have different color bananas that you can only pick up as a certain member of the DK family, and then you had to go find a barrel to switch. It was a whole mess. So like, there's a simplicity in the cameo bots that I think really makes it like an enjoyable thing to do. And they're they're cute, and they are like these little nostalgia bombs. So
yes.
It's I don't know. I think I wouldn't be surprised if this wins this category, is all I'm saying. Sorry, what were the other nominations? Forgot we were talking about other games here. Sonic. Greg. Shadow Generations is good.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. Like I like the game, but it's because it's a remake, but they also added a bunch of new stuff with Shadow. So it's it's one of those things where it's like it's almost two separate games, but they're intertwined. But one's just like a remaster, not even a remake, a remaster, and one's like a remake. It's weird.
I consider this just like Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So it's like a somewhat of a remaster of Sonic Generations, but it is like, here's this Bowser's Fury, which is Shadow Generations. I think that's how they viewed it. And even if you like, I don't know if you remember like the main screen of Bowser's Fury, but if you look at the main screen of Sonic X Shadow Generations and the main screen of Bowser's Fury, they're almost identical.
Oh.
Where it's like, here's Sonic, here's Bowser's Fury, here's Shadow, here's Mario World, here's Bowser's Fury. So I think it's kind of cool. I'd like to see more remakes and remasters do stuff like this because it actually is new. And then the new part is cool. They kind of nailed it. And like, it's important to note that this is coming on the back of Sonic Frontiers, which, like, my God, this is so much better than Sonic Frontiers. Even though we can get into the review scores, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just happy to see a good Sonic game.
I feel like they learn something from each Sonic game they do, which X Generations, there's like a good mix of like 3D platforming and then 2D platforming. Like they really did, and there's also like frontier elements in there, like with a hub world, right? It's very Sonic Adventure-y, but at the same time, there's also levels that throw back.
It's not a hub world; it's an open zone game.
Sorry, open zone.
It's very Strand-like in that sense.
Oh God, we missed a nomination in Strand game.
Sorry.
I'm surprised that there's something this good with Shadow's name on it, because I'm typically not a Shadow the Hedgehog kind of guy, and I think a lot of his stuff is not great, but like this being as good as it is surprised me.
You don't like him being the ultimate weapon?
I just like the way he skates because he has like little jet booster shoes. That's the thing I liked about him. That was the only thing I liked about him.
Was style.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the different powers that he has in this game are actually quite cool. Like
it's very Metroid-y in that sense. Yeah, you unlock different abilities that make other levels easier, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. But like the evolutions, everything, like the way that they built the levels around those powers. Yeah, I don't know. They. You're right, Ozzy. Most of the time, I don't really care for Shadow either, but I think they put a lot of care into this game. At least that part of it. And if you like Sonic Generations, here's the latest way to play it, kind of thing. So I like that it's a 2-in-1 thing, but this is a pretty stacked category. I don't know if Sonic's gonna sit atop it right now.
He's fast.
I'm just happy it runs materially better than Frontiers, because holy crap, that was not.
Would you play Frontiers on PC?
No, I played it on Nintendo Switch. And holy crap, okay. Well, because
my Xbox, I have it on Xbox. I didn't have any issues with it, but
I think David played it on PS5 and he had issues with it.
I did.
User experience
may
vary.
PC, and I had issues with it on PC too.
Pop in a game that's that fast that requires split-second decisions for platforming.
Just ruins it.
It is insanely bad. But anyway, I'm just, like I said, I'm almost shocked at how much better Generations is. But we can move on unless anyone else wants to sing the praises of Sonic. No. Neva. Who wants to talk about Neva here?
I have not played much Neva, but I've played like maybe in half an hour to an hour. Mm-hmm. The problem is that when you talk about platformers, you don't want to talk to Bill Lavoie. That's not something you want to do. But I can say that Neva is it's a very heartwarming game. It's a very visually stunning game. Obviously, that's not the category, but it still applies.
It's part of it. Like part of the design. Like, if you're not going to enjoy looking at a platformer while you're playing it, you're probably not going to stick around for it.
I would say as a platformer, so like, a lot of the platformers that we're talking about, like they're very, I would say fun is the dominating thing with it, where Neva, I think thoughtful is probably equal to what you would consider in terms of like what kind of a platformer it is. It's not designed to be just like a barrel of laughs all the time. Like, it's designed to be thought-provoking, and it's designed to show you like connection between a person and a pet. Again, art style is very good. It is 2D as well.
Is this the studio that made Gree?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. They have a style to them. And this is a stunningly beautiful game.
It is very beautiful.
There's a lot more to talk about when it comes to best narrative, but like I love that you're raising a cub from infancy to adulthood, and that plays into a lot of the sections that you encounter in a lot of the combat. I think that's really cool.
Mm-hmm. And you can pet the wolf. At least gets 1 point from me. Yeah, this is another game that Lauren Bell reviewed for us. She really liked it. Got a 9 out of 10. Said the music was also outstanding. She mentioned the heartfelt narrative. It is short. She said it could be completed in like 1 or 2 game sessions. So just something to think about in this category, because like we have some very robust full-featured platformers in this category, and then we have some smaller ones.
short games more.
But that's the thing. That's the common thing about all these is none of these were out there welcome too much. Like even Astrobot is like on the longer end, and that's like what 15, 20 hours.
Yeah, like 30 if you're a completionist, maybe.
Well, that's the trouble with Astrobot is it makes you want to complete it.
Yeah, it does. The crash site, we didn't mention it, but I think the crash site is a cool mechanic that like other games should steal from. It's one of those things where it's like, if you're gonna have a hub world, it better have cool stuff that I can upgrade in it going forward, because I don't like hub world. Yeah. But like, I think the Mario equivalent is like, what if the Odyssey, the spaceship that they were on, like what if you could upgrade that? And there's like stuff, there's like cosmetics that you could unlock by 100%ing levels or something.
Or like, or Rosalina's Observatory to keep the galaxy comparison going.
Dude. Yeah. Would the world melt down if they announced Galaxy 3?
Maybe.
Yes. Good for me.
I'm gonna throw it. Doug Bowser, I know you're watching. Anyway, another free idea for you at the next Nintendo of America meeting.
Mario Galaxy 3. Why didn't we think of that? It's brilliant. And he slams his fist to make it happen.
Last but not least, another indie game here. And I think either solo dev or like maybe 2 people worked on this game, but Animal Well has been nominated for Best Platformer of the Year. David, did you play this much?
I haven't played it yet, no.
This is something I think you'll like. It's a 2D platformer. Kind of has some Metroidvania kind of elements, but it's definitely more of a puzzle platformer.
You have 0 means of aggression in this game. You don't fight anything.
But you do get powers, and those powers are how they remove gates, like how you can get to different areas. So there's early on you get, or I shouldn't say early on, because this is a game that gives you agency as to which direction you go at the beginning. So for me, early on, I got this disc power up, and it really changes the locomotion in the game because it lets you like fly over traps or whatever. But it just sends you going one way until you hit a wall and then you fall down. So like I think Animal Well is really cool in that the design of each level will show you something that it shows you a problem or a puzzle that you're gonna have to solve in the future, but you don't even know how yet. So like there's like these pathways underneath levels kind of, David. So you'll be on a screen and there's like a little pathway at the bottom that you're using because you found it through some other part of the map, but it like shows you the future of the challenges you're going to face. And then you're like, you look at it and you're like, I have no idea how I could get through that. But by the time you get there, because of the stuff that you find, by the time you get there, you're able to traverse it. So I think it's kind of interesting how it puts these carrots out in front of you repeatedly in the game. And it's super rewarding when you figure stuff out in it. This is like a masterfully designed puzzle platformer. It's astonishingly well designed. And yeah, I wish I had more time because I probably would have tried to beat it, but like I played it for a good like 3 or 4 hours, and then I don't know, some other game came out that I probably had to play. But yeah, I would recommend you trying it out, Dave, especially before we vote for like indie game of the year or game of the year, because I think this is the platform that you would like. Just historically, you're not really about these 3D platformers as much, and this is like pixel art 2D platformer. It gives me Celeste vibes at times, but to TJ's point, there's no combat.
That's cool
in it at all. Like there's these animals and these like apparitions in the game, and you distract them by like throwing fireworks or something. It's all like these non-violent ways of distracting would-be enemies, which I think is a really cool philosophy to see applied to a platformer. I don't know if you can tell, I really like this game. And it deserves to be in this category.
It was definitely a weird one for me this year when I reviewed it. It was like, I cannot remember if I've ever played a game where a pencil and a stamp and a map were key items in the game that you actually use to like Because this is a game that handholds you, not at all. There is no text. There is no instruction. You wander and sort of figure it out by just trying whatever you can try with what you have in the moment. And part of that is that, like, as you explore, once you get the map, it starts to, like, mark little paths you've been. But, like, it's kind of hard to remember where certain key elements are, like where a certain puzzle is or where a certain thing is. So eventually you get a pencil and you can just draw on the map in the game to leave marks for yourself, to remind yourself of, like, if a fast travel point goes here, or if there's a certain monster in this spot that'll eat you because you don't have something. It's very odd and it was like a difficulty for me because I was just so not used to playing a game like that where, like, I had to take notes. But it, like, looking back, it was a novel feeling to do that in a game where it mattered.
Right.
And it harkens back to that 8-bit era, like where games didn't hold your hand and, like,
drawing Zelda maps
or just like lunchtime at school, David. We were all getting together and like, hey, are you in this dungeon in Zelda? Like, how do you play this thing? Like, it became this, like, conversational thing with your friends, like, every day. And I can see how Billy, the programmer of Animal Well, like, he really, you can see he's a product of that era of gaming. Like, and it's this game has so many nods to that era, and it does it in a way that's still, like, new and fun feeling. So this is a very strange category because, like, these games are not the same. They're very different games, but they're all platformers, right? So, you know, sometimes the best platformer of the year at Shacknews is a 3D game, and sometimes it's a 2D game, and sometimes it's a Mario Maker 2 game. But you know, like, I mentioned makers because, like, I do think those are different than just playing a packaged 2D platformer. So, like, I feel like this category kind of shape shifting depending on what year it is. So yeah, I think these are all very good nominations. If you're a platforming fan of either kind, check out all these games. They're all really good. But yeah, we should probably get to voting. What do you guys think?
Do it.
I already have your vote, David, but I figured I'll ask you again since you're here.
Sure. I'll do Astrobot.
Okay. Donovan.
Astrobot.
Greg.
Oh, is it going to be a sweep? Astrobot.
There is no pizza involved here, Greg. Don't get excited. TJ.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Penny's Big Breakaway.
Oh, we lost it.
Combo breaker.
There is no pizza on the line, Greg. Ozzy.
Much love to the other nominees, but this is Astrobot.
Yeah. Sam.
It's got to be Animal Well for me.
Okay. I don't know if I don't think I have Denny's vote. So we'll just have him.
Bill's vote. Did Bill give you one?
Oh yeah, Bill did give a vote. Bill voted for Astrobot. And Steve, sorry, thank you for reminding me about the absentee ballots, David. Steve also brought in he also voted for Astrobot. And yeah, I'm gonna vote for Astrobot. Because this is the best platformer of the year. I don't think anyone was expecting Astrobot to be as good as it was. Especially given the past two entries where, what was it? Playroom was largely it was like a tech demo, right? It was a very cute tech demo with a great GPU song and all that stuff. And then there was a Astrobot Rescue Mission for PS4 and PSVR, which was like a dedicated VR game, and it was kind of a tech demo for VR. I would argue it's probably still the best 3D platforming game in VR like ever made. So it's like Team Asobi has made some bangers. They weren't the scope of this. Like, to see something this big from them, I don't think anyone was expecting, and it's great. So yeah, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 votes for Astrobot. Yeah, I voted for Astrobot. That's great. Greg, cue the Astrobot music. What did you say your name was?